Hey everybody, Evan Ronan here for your next tip for writers. So I get asked this question a lot. I get emailed this question a lot, and as a matter of fact, one of my friends actually asked me yesterday just because he's trying to write his own first story. And you'll see this issue very, very hotly debated at writing conferences, on the internet, on blogs. And it's a great debate, in part because I think there's no right answer. What is the issue? The issue is this: should you outline or should you fly by the seat of your pants when you're writing? Now, I'm not going to actually tell you what to do, but I'm going to talk about what might work for you or what you might want to aim for. So, I have used both methods. When I first started out writing, I was a die-hard outliner. My first few books that I tried to write and didn't even finish were all outlined. The first two books in my paranormal series were both outlined. The first one very extensively, the second one not so much. And as I continued further along in that series, I actually stopped outlining. And I don't think it was a conscious choice on my part. I think it was by the third and fourth books, I had discovered what the formula was for telling the stories in that series. So I knew kind of the structure at more of an intuitive or habitual level. So after books 1 and 2 in that series, all I really needed was to think about 3, maybe 4 really big things that I wanted to happen in the story. And then the storytelling, the creative process became just connecting the dots between those 3 and 4 things. So I've done it both ways. For other books or for books, when I'm first stepping into a different genre, sometimes I'll outline. And I've seen success with both. So where does that leave us? Should you outline or should you not outline? There are a lot of examples on both sides of the aisle of very successful authors doing one or the other. Stephen King is very famous for not only not outlining, but being adamant that you shouldn't outline, that it kills the creative process and just saps you of your creativity as you're writing. Lee Child is similar. Lee Child, I think very often he will start with a beginning and an end in mind, and for him it's, how do I write 400 to 500 pages and connect the 2 dots? And usually his beginnings and ends are the character starts in a very, very different place than however he ends up. Both of those, you can't argue with their success. Millions upon millions of copies, millions upon millions of dollars, film deals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But on the other hand, you have a guy like Ken Follett, who is also just as successful as those two. He writes thrillers. He has sold tons of books, very, very successful, always a bestseller, and he outlines rigorously. He even gets feedback on his outlines. Sometimes when he just has a story idea, he'll talk that over with his trusted advisors, agent, editor, significant other, family members. Then he'll do the outline, and then he'll share the outline, and then he'll do the treatment, and he'll share the treatment and solicit feedback on the treatment. And he's already told the story 3 or 4 times before he even sits down to actually write the first draft. So that's his process, and that is significantly different than what Stephen King or Lee Child do to write their books. And yet you can't argue with Ken Follett's success, really. He writes thrillers that are expertly plotted. The characters go on these amazing journeys. They have great arcs. The stories just kind of hit all the right notes. And I think that's a product of how much time he spends up front, just making sure that he's getting the characters and the plot in the way that he just absolutely wants to have them. So what's the answer here? Well, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I think, first of all, that you need to experiment for yourself. So are you an intuitive person? Do you not need to look before you leap when you get started on things? If the answer to those is yes, you might be a fly-by-the-seat of your pants writer. When I do this on my books, I just keep in mind that old rule that every 3 to 4 or 5 pages, something significant needs to happen to up the stakes or change things for the characters in interesting ways. If you follow that rule and you're flying by the seat of your pants, you'll probably be doing okay. If you're a planner and you need to see where you're going before you get there, if that's your personality type, then try outlining. And I say try because this is an experiment. You need to find out what works best for you. Another way of looking at this is if you're not sure what your personality type is, or you're not sure what's going to get you the best results on your books, take a step back and model. So, do you want to write books that feel like Stephen King books? If the answer is yes, then maybe you should try to follow his process. So in other words, model him as a successful author. Figure out how he does what he does. And if you do that, if you spend time, if you do the homework, you will end up writing books that feel like Stephen King books. If, on the other hand, you want to write like Ken Follett, if you want to have these real elaborate plots with a lot of subplots and hundreds of characters in and out of the story, and everything is kind of, for lack of a better phrase, neatly wrapped up at the end, try to follow Ken Follett's process. And that actually raises a larger question that doesn't just pertain to outlining or flying by the seat of your pants. It really gets to modeling, and it really this really gets down to what kind of books do you want to write, and what kind of style do you want to have. And I'll do another video on this, but modeling is a very powerful tool. You go out and you find someone who has been successful in whatever endeavor it is you are trying to get into or get better at. Find out how they did it, how they did what they did, and copy their process. And the closer you are to their process, the closer you will get to producing the same results that they produce. So that's called modeling. And obviously you want to model very successful people who have sold a lot of books. So I'm recusing myself from answering the question of outlining or not outlining, and I'm suggesting instead that go to those authors that have really struck a chord with you and learn about their process. And if you want to write books that end up feeling and being like theirs, then follow their process, and you'll probably end up doing that. So that's all for today. Any questions, please reach out to me at ronaniswriting@gmail.com. If you haven't already, please click subscribe to this channel so you get these videos on a regular basis. And stay tuned. Thanks, everybody.